All right, good evening to you all. Thank you for joining me in whatever capacity that you have and for however long you stay on there. Appreciate you. We are doing our East Lansing Human Rights Commission meeting tonight. Should be a shorter version of what we normally do. On the agenda is pretty light. We'll be hearing from the Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Administrator and staff in relation to the Civil Rights Commemoration. It's going to be a long night, I think. I just jinxed myself. But they will be bringing an idea forward to us in regards to the acknowledgement, I believe, of Dr. Robert Greene here at East Lansing, who's the first person to be able to get a home here in East Lansing and buy one. So stay tuned. We got a few minutes before we lock and load on it. We've got about actually 5 minutes that you had to stare at my face and hear a little side talk, and we'll go from there. So I appreciate you. Thank you. And I look forward to doing it again with you when you get back. Take care. If I didn't mention, this is March 3rd, 2021 at 7 o'clock, tonight's meeting. Get rid of the music.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Sean.
Hi, Justin.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hi. Carla's got her headset on.
Yep.
Isn't that how you work?
It is. Yeah.
How are you at work from home, Carla?
I mean, if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic, it would be fantastic.
Challenging with school, I can't imagine.
Yeah. I mean, kids are doing well, so we're keeping them home at this point, but some of the East Lansing students started going back this week, so my third grader has a different teacher, and there's, transitions, and it's interesting.
All right. I think I'm locked and loaded with all my agenda items. Hey, Shelly, did you handle that item on written communication, the Marshall thing? It's just kind of more just a complaint that we weren't able to look at, or how, is that kind of where you left it at? Marshall?
Sure, the first one?
Yeah.
I don't think we really probably even have to address it, other than to say we received it.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. It's like, whoa. What commission is this? What year is it?
What day is it? I don't know.
Chuck, I really don't think you probably have to publicly say much about the written correspondence at all. The other piece as well, I mean, it's up to you, but it's published and everyone has access to it. And that's our obligation.
Understood. I'll just probably just address it in ways. If anyone had any reactions or responses, then probably move on in regards to that. Unless someone has a better idea. I'm open. It's good to see everyone tonight. Mr. DeLay, my name is Chuck Grigsby. Nice to meet you. You're more than welcome to turn your camera off if you choose to, or leave it on. It's really up to you until we get to your portion. I always just like to say that to our speakers, and I just want to say thank you for your time tonight, as well as staff Elaine and everyone coming in and doing your thing tonight. So I just wanted to get that little FYI out for you.
Well, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for having me.
All right, Chuck, you ready for me to get things live?
Yes, sir.
All right, I'll give you a heads up when it's ready.
Appreciate you.
This meeting is being recorded.
And we are live.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome. We are at our East Lansing Human Rights Commission meeting for March 3rd, 2021. Thanks for all joining us this evening. We'll jump right into it. We are going to acknowledge the city of East Lansing occupies the ancestral, traditional, and contemporary lands of the Eshinabeg, Three Fires Confederacy of Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Peoples Land ceded in the 1819 Treaty of Saginaw. With that being said, we will roll into item 1.1 and do roll call.
Great, thanks. Pat Cannon? Chuck Grigsby?
Chuck Grigsby attending virtually, East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County, present.
Karen Honey?
Attending virtually from East Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan.
Carla McWhirter?
Present, attending virtually from East Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan.
Liz Miller?
Present in East Lansing, Ingham County, Michigan.
Crystal Davis Dunn?
Present, East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County, Michigan.
Catherine Mifiota Slavinsky?
Present from São Paulo, Brazil.
Ouch.
We're all jealous.
Dustin Sardar?
Present, East Lansing, Michigan.
Ingham County, I imagine, Dawson?
Yes, sorry.
No problem. Quentin Tyler? Got it. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you, Shelley.
Guys, traveling the hardest.
Yeah. Thank you, Shelley. I think we barely have enough just for quorum. Is that correct? We're good with the numbers?
We're good.
Okay. All right. So we will move on to item 1.2. We have approval of the agenda for March 3rd, 2021. I'll entertain a motion. If there's no edits or amendments.
I move we approve the agenda.
Moved by Commissioner Honey. Is there a second? Seconded by Commissioner Catherine. Is there any discussion in regards to the March 3rd, 2021 agenda? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. So moved. We'll move to item 1.3. We have approval of minutes from February 3rd, 2021. If there's no amendments or edits to that, I'll look for a motion for that as well.
I'll make the motion.
Moved by Commissioner Sardar. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Vice Chair Miller. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? For the ones who are not on camera, please make sure if you're not going to be on camera tonight that you do at least have a voice acknowledgement on the votes. It'd be really appreciated for the minutes. All right. Thank you. We'll move on to item 2.1 to Councilmember Bacon.
I'm going to reserve comment for section 4.1 and or section 4.3.
Thank you. Did you have anything for us from staff, Shelley or Elaine, at this point in time in the agenda?
Elaine?
Well, I just wanted to let people know that if not, one book event that happened last night with Professor Loretta Ross, that event in its entirety is going to be on, or should be on, the Facebook page of onebook.com. And so if you want to have an opportunity to look at that conversation in her presentation last night, you were able to find it. And I'm sorry, you can find information at onebook.com and also view the program on Facebook.
Thank you, Elaine. Did you have anything for us, Shelley?
I just wanted to say one thing. Our own Elaine Hardy has been chosen as the winner of this year's Athena Award, as awarded from the chamber. So that award will be given on Thursday. I believe it's March 25th. Yes, excellent. And it will be broadcast on TV at 7 p.m. So you're invited to watch that. Is it LNS or ILX? The press release is out there. Check our city's website, definitely, and check out Elaine getting her award. Much deserved. Congratulations to her.
Congratulations, Elaine. That's very exciting.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. Well deserved. So I want to acknowledge Commissioner Cannon in attendance tonight and let him be able to weigh in on his presence. You're muted, Commissioner.
Pat, could you indicate where you're attending from this evening? Nope, we can't hear you.
You're still muted.
Still muted. Justin, is it Alt? To unsilence is Control.
It's Alt A. There he is.
There it is.
There I am. Good evening.
Yeah.
Hi, I apologize for being late. I had some car trouble, but I'm here. And I'm here in East Lansing, Michigan, Ingham County. Pleased to be here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Cannon, for joining us. All right, we'll go ahead and move on. Do we have anyone on the line by chance, Justin?
Yes, there are currently 2 people on the line.
Okay, we'll move to item 3.1. Pursuant to MCL 15263 subsection 1, limiting public comment to 5 minutes per individual for tonight's electronic meeting. Is there a motion for that tonight?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Cannon. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by
Commissioner
seconded by Commissioner McWhorter. Any discussion on 5-minute limit for a caller, each caller tonight? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed to the 5 minutes? All right, so move. We will be limiting public comment to 5 minutes tonight. And whenever you're ready, Justin, we are ready to go.
Yep, perfect. I will just work through my way through the list, and I will give a 30-second warning before time expires.
Thank you.
The first caller is phone number ending in 963. You may unmute and address the commission.
Hi, this is Alice Traeger. Congratulations to Elaine. I somehow had not gotten that press release, so that's exciting. I'm going to apologize in advance for what may come across as bitterness about what I'm about to say. I realize it is largely bitterness towards myself. I am ashamed of how little I have followed the money in East Lansing before the reawakening about racism in this country in the last year. I think that when we talk about systemic problems, it's sort of the case that sometimes we just say there are systemic problems and then we don't pay any more attention. And I've learned from my spouse as an administrator at MSU that the real way you think about systemic problems is to follow the money. And so this is a little bit of a thought about following the money with regard to housing. You may know that the CDBG funds come from HUD. And so the idea behind HUD providing this money is to do good in the world in terms of taking care of people who've been marginalized. The City Council purposely set up a process a couple of years ago that minimized public input on the use of CDBG funding. And I understood why they did that. It was frankly too painful to hear from people and social service groups that wanted to see the money go in good directions when the only thing the city really had to deal with was the Avondale Square debt. I totally understood what they were doing and why they did it. Elliot Singer and I reported at Eli that Avondale Square did not turn out as it was originally conceived. The original concept of this project had been to build low to moderate income houses, and the hope had been for a grant from HUD. And instead, a lot of things went wrong in the process, and City Council didn't decide to kill it years ago. And so they instead took a loan from HUD, which turned into a long-term debt problem for the city. At Avondale Square, a total of 26 houses were built. Only 10 of them are income restricted. The project ultimately, by our calculation, which was not disputed by the city, has come to a total public subsidy of $5 million. So if you calculate how much money went in to make each income restricted house possible, we spent $500,000 in public money per house. The houses that are not income restricted today, which were also essentially subsidized by public money, now sell for in the range of $350,000 and up. Has the staff followed the process on CDBG? Absolutely. But it has not been a process designed to engage the public in any meaningful way. When they were doing the look back on the last use of public funding for CDBG, they scheduled a public hearing between Christmas and New Year's when the rest of the city was silent. The only way people found out about it was because I was checking the calendar obsessively as I do, and I figured out about what was going on. It had a title that did not even give a hint that it was about CDBG funding. I had to Google it to try to figure out what the public hearing was even about and then alert people to it. So CDBG funding has been going to Avondale Square and also to the sidewalk repairs. And if you ask yourself why sidewalk repairs, basically the city has been gaming the system to use HUD money for infrastructure repair because the city has a huge problem with infrastructure because of its age and because of the lack of money due to the fact that we've let pension debt stack up and we have not paid attention to paying our pensions back until recently. I want to be clear, I don't think East Lansing is special. I think this is a pretty common game played by white majority cities with student populations. The student populations helpfully make it look like we have big pockets of low-income people living in our downtown. We call those areas low-income. HUD recognizes them as so-called low-income areas, and then we fix sidewalks. The idea has been that we claim that these are ADA improvements, but in fact, these places have been around. And it's not clear to me in many cases that they're actually being improved so much as fixed because they're cracked, which is important. There's no question it's important. But it's not exactly, I don't think, what CDBG money was supposed to be used for. It's worth remembering that one of the projects that used CDBG money to fix a retaining wall on the sidewalk on the private property or along the private property of the city attorney's property led to a federal fraud whistleblower suit, which the city had to settle. The city was required in the settlement to admit publicly the conflict of interest that the city attorney had that had in fact improved his property and to give back the money, which came to about $134,000. HUD then did the city a favor and turned around and gave him $134,000 more, but we had to give the money back and we had to confess. And I think it's worth remembering that in his defense of that project, which enriched the city attorney's private property, the city manager, George Lahanas, justified the project by saying that poor people might walk on that sidewalk. Every time I read that justification, which I've had to read multiple times because of my reporting,
30 seconds.
That was done in the name of City Council East Lansing, I just feel deeply ashamed. When we looked at what happened at Center City, there the city required the developer to build 25% of the housing units to be either owner-occupied or low to moderate income or for people at age 55 and up. They elected 55 and up. They didn't build for low-income seniors. And that project was subsidized with millions of dollars in public funding. The foundations for Newman Lofts was paid for with public money. Can we get it right? I don't know. But I feel like the only thing that gives us any hope of getting it right
And
is to
time
start
has
paying
expired.
attention to where the money goes. And we start paying attention to the decisions the city council is making with regard to where the money goes.
Thank you for your comments. I wanted to open it up to see if any commissioners or staff wanted to respond to that. Commissioner Cannon?
Yes, sir. First, I wanted to commend you, Alice, for your diligence in finding out what the cryptic label on that community development block grant issue was. Often we see stuff that is obscurely listed and sort of shrug and say, we'll look at it later. But you dug in and found out what that was about. And I just wanted to congratulate you on that diligence.
Thank you, Pat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other commissioners want to respond or staff? This is something that I feel like I've been playing catch up with as far as regards to the history of how this money's been distributed. And the more I learn about it, the more I see, I guess going back to what the caller's comments was, that this is a game that a lot of municipalities play with money and money that's given and utilized in ways possibly in a way that is not reflective of what it's intended for. And just because that is kind of sometimes the norm for a lot of different municipalities, I think that we can take an opportunity as we get caught up, as we get the facts, as we get the numbers, as we get the information. I think we have a responsibility to at least speak on it, whether that's individually outside the commission or whether it's here on the commission floor as we speak. They're going to have the council. I mean, this comes down to what council wants to do and doesn't want to do. And they're going to have a discussion only meeting. I believe it's going to be on the 16th of March, if I'm not mistaken, where they'll be talking about this. And this is where, if this is something I think is important to you or you want to follow up on, that's going to be an awesome opportunity to do that. That's what I probably plan on doing as opposed to this format, because, as I look at the way that this is set up and it ultimately being council's situation, I don't even know why we have it on our website in a way that how we can address this. At least at this point, I don't know. And I know I had asked about that before, why it has something that's supposed to be on our purview in regards to our focus. But again, I'm learning as we go along with that, and I apologize. But I do think it's important to really look at the money, look at how it's spent, and really hold our leaders accountable to, prioritizing that however you see fit. So that's what I'll say. Does anyone else have any more response to the caller?
I really appreciate you all listening. Thank you.
Thank you, Alice. Do we have anyone else on the line?
Yes, the next caller is Abby Taikaki.
Hi, I'm just here to listen. No comment.
Thank you.
Thank you. And that concludes the queue.
Thank you. All right, we'll move to item 3.3, written communication. And I'll open that up. We do have a variety of information in there. Does any commissioners want to comment in regards to what we have for written communication? I'll just say that I kind of really spoke to one line item on there, the community development block grant, as I just said a few seconds ago. And I'll just leave it at that. And we'll move on if no one else has any more comments. All right. We'll move to item 4.1. We are...
Real quick, Chuck.
Yes, Councilman Bacon.
Yeah, perhaps kind of Shelley could clarify. Can you clarify the old system? I think, is the group not aware of how the community development block grants were done when HRC had preview and took presentations around that? Is this group not aware of that old system?
Right.
That hasn't happened in at least a couple of years.
Okay.
Right. It's been several years run, and it's changed a number of times throughout the years. I know when you were on HRC, I believe, I know Liz participated in it. There were 2 members of the HRC that participated in a CG advisory committee, and it was comprised of commission members from various commissions and facilitated by city staff. and they would actually look through the applications for CDBG funds and spend a lot of time really going through those applications, talking to the applicants, and making some recommendations, finalizing their recommendations before they went to council, saying this is where we believe the CDBG fund should be appropriated.
I was thinking that's probably why it's still showing up under.
Exactly. Exactly.
Councilmember Bacon, so that process that when you were on the HRC previously, did you participate or some individuals participate in that function?
I think I did it 4 times.
Okay. Can you, if you don't mind me asking, can you give me a little feedback about, the process, what you think about it, and, the reason why possibly it went away from the HRC?
Yeah, I like the old process, but I know even during that time period, the pot was shrinking under our feet as we were the various groups, like say a lot of the local nonprofits, groups serving underserved populations, immigration type groups, and anything like kind of doing public service in those realms, and they'd give their presentations and put a request in for X amount of dollars, and then we'd make determinations from the entire pool of money. But that pool was shrinking rapidly for those groups, and I'm pretty sure that's probably why they made the determination to take that system down, because it was probably getting to a point where they could not facilitate those types of numbers for the amount of need from those groups. So I'm sure they found other sources, but it was a really good. The presentations did allow for HRC to really learn about the services. That's where I really learned a lot about places for battered women, immigrants, racial minorities, ethnic minorities, LGBTQ. That's pretty much where I got most of my background from people presenting in that setting. So it's a loss that HRC is not getting to see those groups present anymore, because it gave me a good sense of all the services available to the community. So that was more than the dollars. The dollar amounts to their budgets were minuscule, but it was good to make that connection. So I missed that process, and I think it would be really valuable for HRC to have those connections again. So it could be something we discuss in a different format of bringing those different service organizations back in and plugging them back into the HRC, because it was a real big advantage knowing where to send people for services. So.
I appreciate that, Councilman Bacon. I really do, and I know personally that I would love for us to kind of maybe get our hands back in on that action there. But I'm not quite sure how it's set up now with the structures, and I mean we're talking for almost $500,000 of money that we could really advocate for some people here. I mean especially now with how progressive with some of the different things we've done with resolutions, racism as a public health issue and things like that. It really feels like there's an opportunity to really, I don't know, maybe just relook at the way that is. And if other commissioners down the road are open to possibly doing that and getting on and creating a subcommittee and a recommendation crew to council, I know it's going to be a lot of work and a lot of time, especially with what we have going on, but it just seems like it may be important for us to kind of really consider that. Yes, Commissioner Catherine.
I think there's a conversation I had with Shelley when I was first being onboarded onto the commission. So correct me if I'm wrong, Shelley, but I thought that there was a committee or some sort of group that oversaw the CDBG grant. Isn't there such a body that does that now within the city?
So it was called the CG Advisory Committee.
Okay.
However, they changed that process.
It was combined commission or committee, as you want to call it. Say a couple HRC, someone from planning, someone from different areas, form into a small committee, and then they'd give their recommend. They would look through massive notebooks full of recommendations and things like that. They'd give their guidance or recommendation to council from that point. It's very tedious. It's a huge process.
So what happened to that?
So sorry, Councilmember Bacon, and
No,
that,
you're right. Sorry.
that's one reason we had Amy Schuschler-Schmidt compose a memo that's attached in written correspondence, because she described kind of what the process is now. It's primarily, city council has a lot of input about priorities of where those funds go. So they've streamlined the process very much, and they no longer use that model.
I see. Okay. Thank you for that.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you, Commissioner Catherine. Thank you, Councilmember Bacon, for the fill-in on that. It's very enlightening. I think we'll go ahead and move on to now what is item 4.1. We have our civil rights commemoration from Elaine Hardy and Adam DeLay.
Thank you, Chairman. And for those of you who have not had an opportunity to meet Adam DeLay, I would like to introduce him to you. Adam DeLay is a Parks and Recreation Commissioner and one of the community members who first approached me about working to look at how we might find some ways to commemorate a civil rights legend who has some very strong ties to East Lansing. And so what we have tonight is, I don't want to call it a PowerPoint presentation because it's just a few slides and it's mainly to help me remember not to forget to say something. But Adam and Ron Bacon, Commissioner Bacon and I are on a committee, and we are looking at ways in which we might find to pay tribute to Dr. Robert L. Green. And we just simply called this committee the Robert L. Green Project. So Justin, if you wouldn't mind. So what we are hoping to do is to talk about Dr. Green's contributions to the full civil rights movement as they related to his own personal story of integrating East Lansing. You can go to the next slide. This just is a picture of Dr. Green with Dr. King. He served as Dr. King's education director for over a year. He was his national education director while he was still a part of the MSU and East Lansing community. You can go to the next slide. So what is the Robert L. Green Project? What we're hoping to do is find a way to memorialize the civil rights achievements by Dr. and memorialize East Lansing's civil rights history as it is associated with issues like redlining and to educate numerous civil rights organized and supported by Dr. Green while he was in East Lansing. You can go to the next slide. In my process of talking with Dr. Green, and I have the privilege of being able to speak to him a couple of times a week to kind of really try to encapsulate this history of his time in East Lansing, I always learned something new. And there were significant measures towards strategizing and moving the ball forward, if you will, with regard to civil rights history that happened at the house on Bessemer Street. And so part of our wanting to memorialize the work that Dr. Green does would include us making an application for a state historic marker on Bessemer Street. And this marker would talk about the redlining history in East Lansing and a significant civil rights victory that Dr. Green won won while he was living in East Lansing that I'm going to talk about in a few minutes. And to name a physical building in honor of Dr. Green, a school or some other public body. And then to look at along down the line to put a national historic marker at the residence. So these are the elements that this project will consist of, and I'll repeat them again. To put a state historic marker on Bessemer Street on the park property. And that state marker would talk about the history of redlining in East Lansing and the landmark civil rights victory that Dr. Green won for Black people all over the country. And to perhaps look at naming a physical structure after Dr. Green and then again to look at putting a National Historic Marker on the residence at 207 Bessemer. You can go to the next slide. And Adam, please jump in here if I'm forgetting to say something, or if you feel like there's something that needs to be filled in. So we really specifically are looking at the house on Bessemer Avenue. It was the house that Dr. Green purchased with he and his wife Letty. He was the first Black person to purchase a home in East Lansing through the use of a realtor. And there is a lot of history that has been documented around the events that supported his sale, and we are hoping that we will be able to find a way to educate the community about this. So the significant civil rights victory that I mentioned, and it just kind of crystallized for me today, in fact, when I was reading over some of the other work that he did. So President Kennedy in 1962 signed an executive order banning housing discrimination based on race. Robert Greene was the first Black person in the United States to sue under this executive order and prevail. And it happened in East Lansing. And for me, I had to let that sit with me for a minute, because that is a significant civil rights milestone that happened here in our community. And I don't know that we have talked about it a lot, because it's kind of buried in all of the other things that he's done. But that is very significant. And the fact that 207 Bessemer was kind of the war room for strategizing to make plans for civil rights activism on campus and in the city of East Lansing. As a matter of fact, when I spoke to Dr. Green earlier this week, he talked about having a marker for March 16th, 1964, with regard to this obscure group that they were referring to as the HRC, the Human Relations Commission. So it's just interesting things about the house on Bessemer Street that I'm finding more and more about as I talk to Dr. Green, but really the significance of that being the first purchase. You can go to the next slide. And so this committee, as I talked about, is kind of a small group of us right now. It's Mr. DeLay, Mr. Bacon, and myself. And our hope is that as we continue to learn more about the contributions of Dr. Green and learn more about the history of Bessemer Avenue, that we would have other individuals who might be willing to join us in our efforts. You can go to the next slide. Is that it?
Yep, that's all the slides I had.
No. Okay. Well, then I am done.
I thought you had one more informational slide, but it might have.
I thought I did, but
you had a long one.
Yeah, it'll be fine. That'll be fine. And so, what we are here today to do is to ask the HRC to support this initiative, to support the Robert L. Greene Project by way of resolution and letter of support, because we are going to continue to have conversations with the community around the work that we are interested in doing in providing the historical marker. And so we're just hoping that we might be able to get the HRC support as well.
Yes, Councilman Bacon.
I hope that you have questions, and I hope that Adam or Ron have other things that they would like to add.
Councilman Bacon, and then Commissioner Honey, if Mr. DeLay didn't have anything he wanted to add.
You know, I just real quick, just to explain kind of maybe how I got involved in this. I actually live next door to the house. And so back when I first heard about this in August of last year, that the house was on Bessemer, I really hoped that it was mine. But I was just next door. And so, you know, it was an idea that kind of started kicking around in my head. And then I was appointed to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission. And then I spoke with the McCafferty over there, who linked me up with Lane. And then we've kind of gotten the ball rolling. And just to let folks maybe in terms, and I don't want to get too much in the weeds, where we are at right now is we're working on the application process for the state marker with the State Historic Preservation Office. They had also indicated to us that they believed it would be a strong candidate for the National Register of Historic Places. that application process is a little bit more involved, which is why it's something we're looking at doing later. But right now, it's been a lot of fun learning the history, reaching out to the Register of Deeds, going through all the LSJ articles, and to really just see it all there be laid out. And in terms of what we're looking at, just from the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission side, for those who aren't familiar with the street, basically what you have is houses on one side and a very large open field that goes up to the Northern Tier Trail on the other side. And so we would be putting the marker across the street from 207 Bessemer and within that empty area, and sort of with the marker, you know, the Parks Commission had said that they would be excited to do a little landscaping around there, kind of make it a little sort of pocket with a small footprint, so that you would have not just the marker, but also just sort of like maybe some benches or something there. And they were very supportive. They wanted to get on that now. And it's a perfect location because of its proximity to the Northern Tier Trail. I can tell you we get plenty of walkers who come down the street. So I think that it would not only be a great marker, but it would be one that people would see and have the opportunity to read and learn the history on it. And so I think it provides an amazing opportunity not just to recognize Dr. Green, but also educate the community. And I'm very excited to be a part of it and all the enthusiasm that's come around it.
Thank you, Mr. DeLay. Did you have something else to add, Elaine?
Well, I just wanted to kind of talk about a timeline. So we are in the process right now, as Mr. DeLay indicated, of making that application to the state. And we are assuming that we're going to hear back favorably from them in June. And Mr. DeLay and Councilmember Bacon and I are also beginning our rounds, and we've started with you, to talk with our community about our hope and plans to move this project forward. And so we're going to be doing that up until we've spoken to the last community group that we need to get to work for it. And so we'll be doing visiting neighborhoods, talking to the East Lansing School Board and other groups up until June. And it's our hope that once the application is filed, that we'll hear back from the state and we'll be able then to have an event that would unveil the state historic marker around August of 2021. We're also looking at, as we indicated, once that state designation has been awarded, that we would look at a national designation for the home. And that process takes a little longer, but we're hoping that we may be able to see that happen in 2022 as well. So that's all I wanted to share.
Thank you. Councilmember Bacon and then Commissioner Honey, please go ahead.
Yeah, and just per conversation I had talking with Elaine today, I had a conversation with Principal Andy Wells today regarding the subject, and the obviously Mr. Wells and his family are very close, and I really realized today it's impossible to tell the history of East Lansing without illustrating Dr. Robert Green's history here, and he began to tell tales of himself and when meeting Martin Luther King and Martin Luther King, his son, and they're shooting baskets, and the connections between the Green family and Coach Bibb and all this history and history of East Lansing High School and having issues of integration, and Dr. Green showing up when they were having issues of intimidation and things like that. It's just like you cannot tell the story of East Lansing without his story being completely ferreted out and understood, and it opens us up to all these other historical figures and people that we have here that also need to be honored, frankly. But he's the linchpin, a single point of contact for almost every one of these stories. When you start, if you mention his name, it will open up a storybook of civil rights and human rights and education and excellence. So it's exciting now that you know this name, and if you haven't researched him, it'll take you down a rabbit hole of civil rights you didn't even know started here. But he's the key, and we definitely want to honor him, and let's just say give people flowers while they're here and honor him. And I've been excited for many of the people who visited through the NOK Commission over the years. This is turned into my highest level of excitement I've ever had for any icon. It's growing in me, and I'm getting more and more excited to honor Dr. Green. So.
The challenge is doing just one marker or just fitting it all on one, and we're going for the biggest one, double-sided, to get as much as we can. But I think that was part of the reason why, and then just real quick, sorry, the conversation that I had with the State Historic Preservation Office is they wanted to try and focus because we're putting it by the house, just the house discrimination and the redlining piece of it. But to the council member's point, and as I've done, I mean, rabbit hole is a perfect description, because every time I start to learn a little bit more, it just takes me in an entirely different direction. So yeah, it's like I said, an awesome thing, and happy to be part of it.
Thank you, Commissioner Honey.
It happens almost every time I have a conversation with him. Just like the landmark today, about 1962 and the executive order, and how East Lansing figured into that. It's phenomenal.
Thank you, Elaine. Commissioner Honey, thanks for being patient.
Oh no, it's all fascinating. This is great. Well, I'm 100% supportive, and those of you at our meeting a few months ago had mentioned that my father studies at MSU. He was my dad's boss. Bessemer Street. My mom has fond memories, and when I told her, she was very. My father passed away this summer. Unfortunately, if he was still alive, I could just pick his brain about Dr. Green, because he worked for him for a couple of years. But it would I would be honored to be able to be a part of this. If you're still looking for folks to join your little commission, your subcommittee, I would love to be a part of that. And I might even be able to get some really good inside kind of, perspective from my mom, what she can remember about my dad's days of working for Dr. Green, and kind of do that in his memory. So I think this is fabulous and 100% supportive. And any way I could be a part of it, that would just be an honor to me. So thank you, Adam and Elaine, for bringing this forward. And yeah, I'm fully supportive.
Thank you, Commissioner Honey. Any other comments or reactions to the small presentation tonight? I see a lot of head nods as you were speaking and presenting this to us. And I think I could safely say that genuinely we're all very supportive of this project that you guys are working on, and very appreciative of that. Who right now is all serving on the committee right now, Dr. Green's committee? I know you mentioned you two. Who else is on that committee?
There really, right now, it's just a three. It's Councilmember Bacon, Commissioner DeLay, and myself. And now Kieran. But there's just the three of us. Tonight we are really hoping, Ms. Chairman, if we could perhaps have the HRC agree to write a letter of support for this project and pass a resolution in support of it as well.
Yeah, is anyone against that or have any issues with that at all? Because I think we're good. We can definitely support that. I think really, and I think I've mentioned this to you, Elaine, that it's really important that the community has take in on this and get them involved as early as possible. And I know you guys are going on talking with community members and associations and things like that. As long as everyone feels the same way that we do, I think it's a beautiful thing to have acknowledgement. Dr. Green and his body of work. What we had him a few months ago, he's an amazing guy. So I can appreciate what Councilmember Baker was talking about in regards to being very excited about this and being able to acknowledge him, especially as he said eloquently about the flowers are why people are here, and acknowledging that. And I think that would be a beautiful thing that does play itself out this summer. So that's what I'll say to that. And I guess I'll just safely say, yes, Vice Chair Biller.
What would the timeline be for the letter and the resolution, just so we can make sure that we have someone who does that work and it actually happens? Yeah.
So as we are visiting with the community, we're going to be asking for support from probably the Parks and Recreation Commission as well. So if we have to give you a date, then we certainly would love to have it as we apply for our state application, which we do want to send that application in by the end of this month. Is that correct, Adam? And so if we could perhaps have a letter of support so that we could attach to our application, that would be amazing. And then a resolution certainly could come later, something that we can present, along down the line at the event, or or even before then.
Awesome, great. Is there anyone who wants to take a stab at a draft of a letter this month so that we can pass it off in the deadline? I ask others so that I don't volunteer.
I'd be willing to take us to with you as my co-editor, Liz. I'll start it out and maybe send it off to you. And yeah, that sounds good. Is there okay. And Elaine, I might reach out to you as I'm writing this letter if I want some statistics or something like that, or maybe just refer back to your PowerPoint. But yeah, I'll take a stab at it and try to get something out in the next week or two if that's okay.
Yes, Commissioner Catherine.
Do we have to vote on that? How does that is it an electronic vote, or everyone just kind of gives a thumbs up when the draft is ready? What's the process?
We should probably vote to affirm writing a letter, but then don't need to in support of this, but don't need to. And then next month the letter would be included in our written documents as part of the record, but we don't need to vote on the final draft of it. Yeah. Good question.
Thank you, Vice Chair, and thank you, Commissioner Catherine. So if there's any more comments, we're open. If not, I'll entertain a motion in support of the Civil Rights Commemoration for Dr. Green and a letter of support going out.
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Catherine. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Commissioner McWhirter. Is there any more discussion in regards to this letter of support? All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Is there anyone opposed? All right. So moved. For your work and your attention to acknowledgement. It's a beautiful thing. He's going to step up and outdo us all with. We appreciate that, and thank you for your presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Unless you want to stay, Mr. Delay, it's certainly up to you. So I'm just giving you an out.
No, I do got to put my daughter to bed, so that's perfect timing.
We really appreciate your time tonight. Thank you so much. Here. All right. So we'll move on to item 4.2, coffee and conversation. Does that sound familiar to anyone? We were, doing our thing here last year, and then I'm not exactly sure when we started, but I think we were able to get, actually 8 or 9 events set up and planned and executed. Vice Chair Miller, do you want to lay that up for possibly the newer members and kind of explain how we came about and what that all meant, and if we want to lay that out for going forward as far as just the concept as a commission?
Yep. Yeah. So this was a community outreach, a way of connecting with folks, constituents, and so we would once a month, usually on a Sunday afternoon, we sort of tried different times, and that ended up being usually the best, would meet at a different East Lansing coffee shop and would talk about, host a different conversation theme. Usually each month was focused on one of the protected classes as the general theme. And so just an open time for people to come. A commissioner would be the host, so prepared to either talk about, what are the services for that protected class, or what are the issues in the community, or maybe have a guest with them. Oftentimes other commissioners would just show up and support and to participate in the conversation. We gosh, I feel like maybe we had like 6. Carrie, you might remember, or Pat, like 6 months, or Carla, like 6-7 months worth of them before things got shut down. Various success, anywhere from like 10 to 2 people, and even, you know, I was at the one with the 2 people and me and Chuck, and it was still profoundly it was moving just to sit with people. The people who showed up were passionate about the topic and had stories to share or questions to ask, and it was just a good way to connect with folks that's a little different than, you know, coming to a city meeting. So yeah,
I agree, Liz, and it seemed like we were just kind of getting going. I mean, in terms of getting new ideas and kind of figuring out how to tweak it to make it more successful, and then COVID hit. So, but I think you're right. I would say maybe 6 or 7 we had. That's about right. We covered a little bit of territory.
Commissioner Cannon?
Mr. Chair, this is Pat.
Yes, please go ahead, Commissioner.
I'd like to say that I participated in 1 or 2, and it was a joy to engage in conversations from people who came because they were interested in the topic. And at no point in none of these sessions did we run out of chairs for people. So the attendance was not overwhelming, but the quality of the conversation, I think, was excellent. And I hope that at some point we can pick it up again.
Thank you, Commissioner Cannon. I got to tell you, I participated in 2 or 3 of them, and I'll never forget the very first one with Commissioner McWhorter, and we had showed up to the coffee shop, and she was all set up and prepared, ready to do her thing. And then I think it was both news stations showed up to interview us about it. And I'll never forget that, because that's the most expressive I've seen Commissioner McWhorter in my whole entire life. And it was a very positive thing. Now Mayor Stevens saved the day by coming in and just really doing a great job of presenting it to the community. And for me, I just really appreciated the fact that we had an opportunity to talk to community members and get a feel for what's on their mind on the topics that we presented. And I feel like we can certainly be successful in doing that going forward. It's just a lot of unknowns in there. So I think Vice Chair Miller and I wanted to kind of get a feel for the room when it comes to looking at this down the road. We're not quite sure about what the next coming months are going to look like, but we wanted to lay the seed out, I think, to just kind of see what the energy is about that, and kind of some of the different things that, you know, we can kind of maybe start thinking outside the box going forward on topics and continuation of that. Did you want to have anything more to add to that, Vice Chair Miller?
Yeah, we talked about, you know, what are the options for gathering outside or as the weather turns, and possibly thinking ahead, you know, it could be in a month or 2 that that's possible and good. So either coffee shops with outdoor experience, or in our local parks, you know, is there a way to hold a socially distanced small group gathering in that way, or is there a different way to connect? Are there events in the community that we could show up at or be engaged, or ways to make those community connections?
Thank you, Vice Chair. Any more discussion in regards to coffee conversation? We kind of wanted just to open it up and just kind of get a feel and some feedback. Yes, Commissioner Cannon, and then Commissioner Catherine, please go ahead.
Again, I'd emphasize that I don't think we can determine the success of any event on the number of individuals that turned out for the conversation, but it was the quality of the conversation. And we know that yesterday the president announced that by the end of May there will be enough vaccine in this country to vaccinate every adult in America. And so with that in the back of our minds, that the target is the end of May, I think we could tentatively plan for resuming those coffee and conversations as early as June or July.
Wasn't that the time we started last year? Was it June, I believe?
I think
so. It would have been the year before.
Yes.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, you're right about that. But yeah, I think June was the time. We had beautiful weather. We had the option to sit on the patios or inside, and So yeah, any other comments? You know, I don't see that being unrealistic at all. In some ways, Commissioner Cannon. Yes, Commissioner Catherine, please go ahead.
So were there ever partnerships with other commissions or other groups within the community?
We didn't have any partnerships with any commissions that I remember. You know, and that's why you're here. You know, that's a wonderful suggestion or thought in regards to teaming up with other commissions in regards to some of the different issues and some different things that we're doing with protected classes. But yeah, I mean, we didn't. Does anyone remember? Did anyone set anything up in a way where they were working with another organization officially or another commission?
We had talked about it. I don't know if anyone actually ever did that, but it was definitely kind of part of the long range plan, Catherine, was that if we were talking about housing discrimination, that reaching out to, you know, the idea was there. And certainly when we were preparing for our topic, I know that I certainly reached out to, you know, did my own background connecting with existing organizations. It was never as co-sponsorship, but I do like the idea, and it was kind of in the, you know, plan and in the talk. I think that had we continued moving forward, we might see more collaboration is what I think.
Yeah, and I remember we had a real concern about trying to like come off as the expert of these topics, and so we invited people, I believe, and you know, had them come in from their respective professions or skills or organizations to give us that information, give the community that information in that format. Commissioner Sardar, please go ahead.
Yeah, we did partner with the census committee as in one of the coffee hour events. I wore a double hat since I was part of that committee as well, but we did invite Regine Head from the census committee to be part of it. That was a partnership. Just thought I'll put that example out there.
Absolutely. And then Commissioner McWhorter, you had invited someone from, I don't remember where she was from, but she was a housing person, and she was very helpful and breaking some things down that, you know, were, you know, I don't remember where she was from. Do you remember by chance where we got her from in that very first one?
Oh goodness, I'm trying to remember. So she just had randomly showed up, but ended up, that ended up being a fantastic conversation. I feel like we learned so much from that. Oh gosh, it might come to me.
Yeah,
I can't think of the organization right now.
I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Commissioner Catherine.
Yes, so just, I don't know, if we're brainstorming, one of the things that comes to my mind is partnering maybe with East Lansing libraries and then having a reading and then following that reading, having a conversation, or with the Arts Commission, I don't know, having something surrounding music and then talking about that with relation to human rights, or any kind of other art form. Maybe have a little improv skit and then have the discussion about that. I don't know. I'm just trying to make it so that there's an interactive component, which is still the conversation, and also a learning component, which is the exposure to a new, to a new idea. And then we wouldn't be necessarily the experts in it, but our partners would. So they would bring the expertise, and we would be the facilitators of the discussion following that.
Thank you, Commissioner Catherine. Did you want to weigh in, Elaine?
Thank you, Chairman. I just wanted to raise up the idea that the MLK Commission is always looking for opportunities to engage the community, and particularly in discourse around civil rights and human rights issues. As a matter of fact, a few years ago, I don't know how many it's been, Shelly, but we worked in conjunction with the MLK Commission to host a couple of community conversations at the East Lansing Hannah Community Center that were very widely well received and attended. And so I just wanted to put that out there, that if there's ever any interest in, you know, working with the commission, I'm certain there would be some willingness to do so on behalf of the commission. I do want to raise up, though, that if in fact there is an opportunity to do that we're looking at the space that we're occupying and having these kinds of conversations and really not just letting it sit there, but to look at any type of activism that can evolve from those conversations to support whatever issue it is that we are discussing at that time would be very important for the commission to see moving forward. So thank you.
Thank you, Elaine. And, you know, you're just another example of why the city needs you and what you do, and really complimenting what we want to get accomplished and what we want to represent to the community. Did you want to weigh in, Commissioner Honey?
I did. I just wanted to respond to Elaine because actually that's what gave birth to this idea, Elaine, was those two events at the Hannah Center. And when I joined the commission, I had this idea brewing because I had participated in both of those events at the Hannah Center. And the takeaway from all the feedback we got, I was on the school board at that point, I think, was we want more. You know, like people like had these momentum and then nothing happened after that. And so when we had a conversation, when I was a new commissioner, that's really, I think, what gave birth to this idea, was doing something more regularly. And that idea was a call to activism. You know, that was really part of the original vision because we just saw all this excitement from people in the community, but it was like a once a year event. And so we thought, wouldn't that be great if we did something monthly? And so just that you mentioned that really to me is what gave birth to this whole idea. So I think that's an excellent idea in terms of maybe partnering and figuring out how we can make it be more than just a meaningful conversation. Absolutely.
Thank you, Commissioner Honey. Did you want to weigh in, Commissioner Cannon, before we wrap this discussion up?
Just to follow up on what Karen just said, I think had it not been for the stifling of the coronavirus, we would have continued these coffee and conversation events, and I think it could have mushroomed, and I think it still can. And I just urge us to pick a month and start planning from that time forward.
Agreed. I guess maybe, and I don't know, you know, with our timelines and pops like that, but maybe, and I'm just putting it out there, shoot me down, but maybe we should probably think about possibly creating a subcommittee, maybe not tonight, but in the future going forward, so we can kind of hammer down some of this input tonight and then have that group of people kind of come back to us. And so then we can kind of have some line items or have some type of structure with being able to start to implement some of those ideas. What is your feedback on that, Commission? I see a thumbs up from Commissioner Honey. Yes, Commissioner Catherine.
Just what would be the outcome? So like that's I guess that the better described the outcome, the better success the subcommittee. So what is the outcome? Is it to come up with an agenda or a schedule and potential ideas for what each discussion should be? Like, what's the outcome?
That's a great question. Yes, Vice Chair Miller, please go ahead.
Yeah, great question. I think it would be helpful to have a subcommittee that concretely creates a framework to propose, because there have been a couple different ideas raised in a framework that balances. So the Coffees and Conversation format was based around the regularity of once a month, so it becomes a routine and a ritual that people can count on, and the bandwidth of the commission of what type of event. But if we're talking about partnering or reaching out, maybe it's a 1-2 framework of a regular thing and a couple of organizations or groups that we want to intentionally partner with to create these larger pieces, in the coming year. So it's really like an events subcommittee that is creating the framework for our community outreach events for the coming year.
Thank you, Vice Chair. So not necessarily what those things are, but really just the structure of it is what we're talking about. Yes, Mrs. Newman, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think Commissioner Miller hit the nail on the head with that. It's a twofold approach. I would think would make a lot of sense. It is not too early to start thinking about a larger event, because it does take a lot of planning and a lot of work to arrange. It's not something you can pull off 2 months ahead of time. It's very difficult. So I would, encourage a committee to look at a more regular thing as well as perhaps partnering to a larger event.
And calling like the MLK Commission that are experts at event planners as soon as possible to get on their calendar. Yeah.
All right, thank you. I think we'll go ahead and wrap up the discussion. I think we got a good foundation of item 4.2, unless anyone else had anything else they wanted to add.
Could people who are interested in the subcommittee maybe email you this month, or so that we have an idea of who that might be going into next month's meeting, as opposed to like starting from a blank slate again?
Yes. If you don't mind, Vice Chair, I'd rather have them email you.
Sure, that's fine.
I got a little bit on my plate in regards to that. I don't want to do anyone any injustice, just with my delay of responding or anything like that. If you don't mind, please.
Great.
All right. I know you're busy too, so I don't want to be disrespectful in that. But yes, thank you.
I just heard her volunteer.
All right, we'll move on to item 4.3 and update from the Police Oversight Study Group. Councilmember Bacon, did you want to weigh in on this at all? I can give my 2 cents on it, but as far as this maybe, given your perspective of kind of where that group is at, and what you are seeing here in the next few weeks or so. I know Elaine Hardy and everyone else has been working on this public input session that we have coming up. But did you want to? Not a have to, but I just wanted to give you an opportunity if you wanted to.
Yeah, I'd say at this point we're kind of out of the academic portion of the process and we're into the nuts and bolts of what's going to be the function of the commission, how it's going to be constructed, the makeup and configuration, who's going to be seated, how many seats. We're into that real, work part of the commission now. There've been several presentations along those lines, and now we're preparing for the community input down the road here. But we hope to have at least it could be even severely rough draft by that point. By the time we get to the community input session, which will be important to hear from the community broadly about what their impressions are of policing. And I have received the calls, and I know several people are starting to receive the calls on the policing survey. And I know we got the call, at least in my, I didn't get to pick it up. And my wife might have, that'd be something we could discuss and see what we thought of the nature of the questions and that kind of thing. And it'll be definitely something that we'll share with you down the road. As well, around kind of what those findings were from the community. That's a good broad cross section that we'd definitely be willing to share back with the Human Rights Commission at a later date. So we're just getting down to the really tough part now of deciding what type of commission, what type of powers will be granted, and what type of things they're going to ask for, and this is the hard part. So, and what's that going to mean to the future labor negotiation down the road? And all those things have to be taken into consideration. Complaint handling, anything you can think of has to be considered. So we're into the head now. So,
thank you, Councilmember Bacon. You did cover a broad range of that. I just wanted to speak a little bit to just making sure that we have 2 different things going on. We have a public input session portion where we'll have the community, come in and sit down with us, and it won't be just in the 5-minute format that we typically do for our public meetings. They'll be able to kind of really have a discussion, and we're going to have breakout sessions and a whole opportunity to really get that input and do something with that information, and what Councilmember Bacon was speaking to. And the other portion is pretty self-explanatory, but yes, the city is sending out a survey to the community in regards to what their ideas of, how policing is happening in our community, and some different things with that, as far as kind of how the community views the police and what they expect possibly from the Oversight Commission. I haven't seen the questions and I can't really quite speak to that, but those, I just wanted to clarify that. And yes, we have really just got a lot of data, a lot of information, and we're now formatting that in a way where, as Councilmember Bacon was talking about, we're really working on the model. So the actual functional piece of what the oversight powers would be that we would recommend to council for them to kind of weigh in on. And that's been a very fruitful discussion in regards to it fitting what we have as far as needs in our community and how we can go about having an oversight commission that really addresses some of these different things when it comes to complaints and some of the different models that we want to have. I think another big portion I want to highlight to you is that we're also really focusing on policy and really jumping in on working with the city and the police department and having this body be able to work on policies and procedures when it comes to how they're policing the community as well. So not just more of a reactionary, but also a proactive commission. So we're kind of right in the heart of all that. As Councilmember Baker said, it's really where the heavy lifting, as he says, is happening. We do have a little bit of a time crunch. We were commissioned to do this thing till, is it mid-April, I believe? So we may need a few more meetings, a couple more weeks after that to really make that deadline and really have this recommendation be something that's very, very workable for council to kind of wrap their heads around and just jump in and get this thing through as soon as possible. So I'm saying the same thing that Councilmember Bacon said, but just highlighting a couple of different points on that. So did anyone have any questions in regards to item 4.3 in the update? Thank you. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to Commissioner Concerns, item 5 on the agenda. Do we have any input from any of the commissioners or concerns or questions or statements? Yes, Commissioner Catherine.
I don't remember. Does it have to be concerns?
No, it's open. It just says that.
Okay. So I just wanted to let everyone know I volunteered to work with Shelley on putting a little binder for new commissioners. Haven't got to that yet because getting to the bill was a whole thing. But that is my kind of priority right now for the commission. So just wanted to let everyone know. It will also include Robert's Rules procedures and just kind of a fun, information catalog for anyone that in the future joins the commission so they can hit the ground running. That's all.
Thank you, Commissioner Catherine, and we really appreciate that. I know that was something that was really important to you as you got on and some of the different things that you had on your onboarding process. So I believe that's a tremendous step up from you in your time to be able to kind of contribute to that for future HRC members. So thank you. Yes, Commissioner Cannon.
Yes, sir. Some of you know that I read a lot. One of the benefits of retirement is every day is Saturday, and you can read as much as you want. And the last couple of years, I've been reading between 10 and 15 books a month. And a couple that I've read recently might be of interest to those interested in human rights and civil rights. One is called From Here to Equality, Reparations for Black Americans in the 21st Century. And another one is called 40 Acres and Maybe a Mule, also deals with reparation, but that second one is targeted to older elementary school kids, and both are interesting reads. And if anyone's interested, I can pass on the titles and authors to our liaison, and you would share with the rest of the group, wouldn't you?
Of course, Pat.
Okay, thank you. I've also read the Autobiography of Milton X, which was very, very interesting, particularly how his life took a turn in his later years and how he became an advocate, etc. So that's another one I would recommend. And obviously, that author would be Malcolm X. And on the subject of reparation, it is not beyond the realm of possibility that that could be a topic for a coffee and conversations group. I know some would consider it a big step. Pursuing reparation is a tall hill to climb, but before we ever achieve it, it's got to start that climb sooner or later, one place or another. So that's the end of my thoughts for the moment.
Thank you, Commissioner Cannon. I really appreciate the resources and the reference. You have a lot to offer to this commission, so I always love when you weigh in and give us a little bit of knowledge. Any other commissioners have any comments or concerns? I just got one, and I know this has been kind of a very bright, lovely meeting, and we have a lot of positive things going on. But I really want to address, something that's very, very important to me, very important to a lot of people in the community. And this is kind of to Councilmember Bacon and Elaine Hardy in regards to, we've been working on, as you know, the study group and getting a lot of information. And we, it has come to light that the traffic stops, 20%, or excuse me, not 20%, but 2 or 3 times likely for minorities to be pulled over, 3 or 4 times likely if you don't live here to be pulled over if you're a person of color. And then over a 3 or 4 year period, we have 20% more African American people being pulled over, which beats any other surrounding municipalities that I am aware of. And, in a couple of meetings, it seems like community members have brought this up to council, has really made some very passionate pleas to this disparity. And it just seems like there hasn't been, and I try to watch every single meeting, every commission, and it does not seem that anyone on council has addressed these numbers, addressed this information, or even spoke out on it in a way that really recognizes that it's an issue. And I know we're doing things, and I know we passed resolutions, but to me, I feel like it is something that it's kind of like the elephant in the room, and we're all kind of just avoiding that conversation, that hard conversation. The oversight commission that is going to be in play here, hopefully in several short months, is a commission that is set up to be able to deal with complaints and policy recommendations and things like that. But it doesn't address these issues. No oversight in the nation. This nation is designed to be able to address those issues. Those issues have to be addressed by leadership. And it has to be something that we have to have out in the open and have discussions and tough discussions with that. And I just feel like from what I've seen and what I've heard that we could take a little bit more emphasis on speaking on this, or at least making statements in regards to acknowledgement of these numbers and this information that our community is bringing forward. And I think it's a responsibility for me to say that as being a member of this HRC commission, and this being one of our protected classes that we are mandated to talk on about and advocate about. So I'll say that, there's no reason if you don't want to respond or anything like that, but I really want to make sure that that is something that is on record that I feel needs to be, I think, looked at, talked about, and be addressed from the community standpoint. Is there any responses or any questions? Yes, Councilman Bacon.
Well, I think in relationship to the data, I think that would be, I consider that data like the worst kept secret ever. I don't think there's any surprise or anything that, to me, that's my reflections on the data. I think it just kind of proved what most people considered to be true, and kind of the reputation of East Lansing as it stood for eons. Like I don't. So I think maybe what you're looking for, I think I'm kind of, from my perspective on any of this stuff, I'm kind of done reacting. It's just time to act. I'm not, you're rarely going to see. I think we've reacted enough to every little stimulus, every little thing. I don't think it's accomplished very much over time, and that's just my approach in general. I think it's a trap, and I'd rather act. And I think the stuff you guys have done around code and all those things, the things Elaine wants to do around cultural realignments, I think that's active. I'd rather be proactive and act on it. I'm just kind of in general and kind of done reacting to stuff that I think it's gotten us nowhere. So probably what you're perceiving is just, particularly from this council, I think you have a really engaged council. You're not going to see us react anymore. I think those days are over. I think a lot of that's a show. People just kind of, and then nothing happens. I think we're in the business now of trying to make something happen. I think we're from kind of an analytics and working with the police. I think we've done more than most cities or most departments do in a lifetime, but now we're at the part where we have to change hearts and minds and do some really hard work. So I think it's a waste of energy, not to any disrespect anyone's feelings on the data, but I just want to see us act rather than react to every little thing. So we're going to see more if we continue to dig. There's no guarantee we're going to hit bottom here. if you're digging at something. So let's just focus, particularly this group. It's a really bright group, and I like this group. And just let's try to focus in on the problems and not react, because we're going to see more stuff. So that's my concern. I don't want to waste that energy anymore. I think it's happened too many times, and you get the banana in the tailpipe, and we get misdirection, and we start going all different ways. It's just hone in. We know what the problem is. I don't need one more piece of data to confirm it or deny it. So I'm just ready to move, to the next era. And like we said, around the Robert Greene thing, I just want us to live up to our heritage as a really a mecca for civil rights. I just want these things to come into some confluence, to where it's true for everybody. So that's probably what you're seeing. Not see our council react or overreact to any of this stuff anymore. So we're just going to have.
Thank you for your comments, Councilmember Bacon. I think really, and this is the conversation for another day, I would imagine, but I think I would agree with you to a great degree, reacting and addressing it in a way that shows the community that this is an important issue. I don't think there's any wrong with that or any harm in doing that and showing that this is a concern. And by far, East Lansing has done a number amount of things that I think are important into the right direction. And I say this to you with all due respect, and I bring this up with all due respect with everyone sitting here, but I feel that we can do more. And what more is going to be a team effort for longstanding issues that we've had in this community, around the nation in regards to some of the different things that we're talking about. And I just want to make sure that we don't tune this out, especially when we have people who are out here having life-changing events when it comes to these numbers, these data. These are people's lives, and it's very, very important to be mindful of that. So I really appreciate that. And again, I just want to make sure that I'm saying this in a way that is something that's just important and I think needs to be said. Nothing outside of that, and something that I think is something that we got to continue to work on. And I'll leave it at that. Yes, Commissioner Honey.
Chuck, you and I had a conversation last week, and we both expressed our frustrations just about the fact that we've really been focusing a laser eye really on police excessive force and on police complaints as an HRC. This was all, it's no surprise, right? But this was kind of all happening while we kind of felt like we had this laser eye. But like you said, that we were focusing on kind of a different aspect of it. Obviously, the more folks of color are pulled over at such a disproportionate rate, the more likely, excessive force is going to happen as a result, et cetera, et cetera. So do you feel like this is going to be one of the main purviews of our eventual police oversight committee? I admit to not, I should be more involved in paying more attention, and I appreciate all the updates all the time, but I'm just curious between Ron and Chuck, is this something that's being delineated as a priority moving forward? Not just excessive force, but looking at people being pulled over, and is that being identified as a priority?
Well, okay, so the Oversight Commission and that whole energy from that, it being into reality, is definitely a piece that really will address a lot of issues that are going on. But if someone does not make a complaint, or someone is being in a situation that they are not able to come forward, it just seems very, very hard for the reputation that East Lansing has for that to change when we don't have, I think, leadership talking about the issue in a way that really addresses people's concerns. The Oversight Commission is going to be a very positive thing. Deputy Chief Johnson, I mean, he's been amazing. He's been very available. He's been very proactive in doing some different things. He has come on and hit the ground running. So please don't get it misconstrued about kind of where I'm at. I'm very appreciative of the work that's been put in, but the challenge is that the issues that we're talking about in regards to the numbers, the Oversight Commission will have, in my humble opinion, a very little effect on that change. It's the behavior, it's a culture that we have to work on that's been longstanding for a long period of time. And so for me, I don't think that the magic wand is going to be done by having an oversight commission based on some of the history that we've had in the city. But that's just where I'm at with that when it comes to that. And I hope that addresses your question a little bit, Commissioner Honey.
Just to expand on that, I think they're defining their powers. I've told them just basically to use your imagination and try to really look at as expansive or the types of powers you really want the commission to have without reservation about what the reality of that is or what that means around contractors or what that means around whatever. Just kind of considering that those types of powers. So the answer here to your question directly is yes, kind of to all of it. They should be looking at every single element and seeing where they fit into that process and every step along that continuum. So yes, the answer is yes. How that will be defined initially and if there needs to be revisions and all that and what happens when it gets to council, I don't know yet, but they're on their road to defining those powers right now. So
thank you, Councilman Bacon, and thank you, Commissioner Honey, for your questions. I think we'll move on if there's no more discussion in regards to that commissioner concern. All right, we're down to item 6.0. I'll look for a motion for adjournment.
So move.
Moved by Commissioner Cannon and seconded, I believe, by Vice Chair Miller. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for listening. Thank you, staff, for participating in your time tonight and the wonderful things you're bringing forward to the community. Really appreciate that. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Mr. Cherry did a nice job of moving this meeting along.
Thank you so much. We were due for a good one, short one like this, productive one like this. You can thank Vice Chair Miller in regards to that. Have a good night, everyone. Take care.
Thank you.
All right, we have got it done. Shorter meeting, hour and 30. We haven't had hour and 30 meeting in almost 2 years, I think. So we got it done. I hope you enjoyed what you have. I hope whatever commission you would like to be on in regards to human rights or human relations in some cities that you can benefit from this information, or anyone who is concerned about issues in a municipality that we have in ours, like many others, and how to get involved and work on that. So thank you so much, and I hope everyone is well. Take care. Bye-bye.